All right. Well, it's Friday evening, December 4th. And do you know what that means? It means that there's another edition of the Weekend Preview coming to you on the Curated Media channel. This is RC. I'm here with Pat, as always, and we're taking our Batman and Robin act out here for another week as we do another edition of the Weekend Preview. Lots and lots and lots of stuff coming out in the next couple weeks. So we're gonna talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we watched over the past week, and then give you our recommendations of new stuff that is available now via streaming. So I'll start off with let Pat talk a little bit about maybe some of the things that he recommended in weeks past that he might have had the chance to catch up on during this week. Pat?
Yeah, not that I necessarily caught up on, but I'm looking forward to catching up on again. Certainly is Sound of Metal, which comes out today on Amazon Prime Video. So it stars Riz Ahmed as a musician who gradually loses his ability to hear and then has to sort of relearn how to navigate the world as a deaf person, and really sensitively done and engagingly done a portrayal of that sort of whole experience and the experience of that character. So that's out on Amazon Prime today. Highly recommend that. Also, two other virtual festival favorites that are available to you this weekend and next weekend. This weekend, the Film Society in Lincoln Center has limited digital screening tickets available for Nomadland, Chloe Zhao's latest picture that I think we talked about back when that was on, and that's great.
Yes. And I know you loved it. And just to give people a frame of reference, that was the highest rated film on Metacritic for the year in terms of just total consensus built around. I think it had 98, and it got pushed. The actual formal release date got pushed to next year. So this is a great opportunity. It's not going to be coming out soon. So if you are interested, make sure you go and grab tickets on FilmLinc. But yes, continue, Pat. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's really wonderful. Can't say enough nice things about that. Or Minari, which is another. I guess we could look at the ratings, but another, I think, widely well received film about a Korean American family that moves to a farm in rural Arkansas and the experience of growing up there. So that will be next weekend. They have an exclusive run at the Film Lincoln Center. So the new movies. I mean, it's been a while since this almost feels like a regular December.
Yes.
In terms of the prestige, adult, interesting pictures.
Yeah, it seems like it's the spigot has been turned off with all the uncertainty around theaters and releasing and what's maximizing what windows and what venues are appropriate for what type of films. And we're actually going to do a show right after this that we're going to release on Sunday, where we're going to talk about some of the latest developments in that. But it does feel like a normal December in the fact that all of a sudden it seems like this week onwards, there's just going to be good stuff out every weekend.
Yeah.
Just to round that out, I'll start with my first pick for this weekend. It's on HBO Max. It's Euphoria. Season 1 came out, well, now like a year and a half ago, the summer of 2019. I remember watching the first couple episodes and being in total shock by it. Was like I'm not a parent, but I could imagine there was a lot of teenagers doing horrible and crazy things on that show. It has a tone that is very dark, very bleak in parts. Also, like one of the most imaginatively directed shows that I've seen in terms of the way they segue between things, the flashback structure, things like that. It is a really good work of art built around sort of the high school caricatures and high school archetypes, headlined by Zendaya, who ended up winning she won an Emmy this past year for her performance as Rue, the main character. So there's an arc through season 1. Rue is sort of a recovering addict. She had come out of high school because she had issues with pills. She went to rehab and then sort of readjusting to her high school life as she comes back into season 1. So there's a cliffhanger at the end of season 1 that I won't spoil if anybody has not seen it. But there's sort of an interlude here between season 1 and 2 that they're sort of theming as a Christmas special. It's a two-part, 2-episode series, I guess, miniseries that will bridge between seasons 1 and 2. Again, if you don't like objectionable content or edgy content, this thing is crazy outlandish. So it's not for the faint of heart. But if you do like the series, I hadn't even realized that there was going to be some basically a new drop from Euphoria. But we get 2 episodes here to tide us over until the new season begins next year. So that's my first pick. Euphoria is available on HBO Max. So if you are a fan or you are looking to dive into some deep high school drama, check it out.
Yeah, I gotta catch up with that show because I've really only heard good things about it. And I think Zendaya and the handful of other things I've seen her in,
Yes.
she's phenomenal. So I gotta catch up on that. Honestly,
Before Dune comes out, right?
Before Dune,
she's gonna really blow up when that comes out.
Yeah, unless it flops.
Unless, well, we won't know. There's no metrics on it anymore, so
that's true. We'll get into that, but
knows,
yeah. Yeah. So should we dive in with our recommendation? I can dive in with my.
Yeah. Why don't you go with that? Was my first recommendation for the week. I'll let you go to yours.
Yeah. So previously, I had recommended Small Axe, the series of, it's a movie anthology series is how I prefer to categorize it. Some people are calling it TV, some people are calling it movies, from director Steve McQueen. The third one of those drops today on Amazon Prime in the US and on the BBC in the UK and elsewhere. But it's called Lovers Rock. It's like an hour and 10 minutes. And it's this beautiful slice of life depiction of a house party in the early 80s in South London. So it's pretty light. It's pretty fun. It's pretty surreal to go and look at and enjoy the act of a huge crowd of people being in the same room together at the same time. So a little bit of pandemic weirdness to it, but overall, really an enjoyable film and one that I can't recommend enough.
Yes, I have to catch up on all of those, and I think we're going to try to cap them all in some type of review show once the sort of anthology is finished. But definitely great stuff to look out for. I've only heard good things about the first 2 installments. All right, so my secondary pick is another TV show. Went TV heavy this week. This is an animated show that again, it's weirdly sort of dovetails with Euphoria because it's an animated show about kids growing up and going through puberty. It's Big Mouth, which season 4 dropped today on Netflix. Top line cast is pretty huge. I mean, Nick Kroll and John Mulaney are sort of the 2 main characters or voice actors in it. But it's a sort of a crazy, fun twist on going through puberty. All these kids have what they call hormone monsters that have them unleashing fury and making bad decisions at various points. It's sort of come into its own over the past, season 1 was good. And then season 2 and 3 have been, just sort of improved on the original formula. It's kind of explicit, definitely an adult cartoon. But if you're looking for something that's kind of a light watch and is pretty packed with jokes and meta comedy and things like that, take a look at Big Mouth on Netflix. Season 4 debuting today.
Yeah, that's another one I keep meaning to catch up on because I love everybody that's involved in that show.
Yes,
and I love animation. So, did you ever watch BoJack Horseman?
I started it, but it's in the daunt of trying to catch up on, what is it, 7 seasons? Did it end up with 5 or 6? Or I'm not sure.
It got pretty far, yeah.
Because I got through about half of 1, and I did like it. I just didn't feel like sticking with it for whatever reason. It just kind of waned in my attention. But yeah, I mean, this is more jokey. That's like a more like artful.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
It's this is certainly life and light, and Maya Rudolph's great, and Nick Kroll does like 20 different voices in it, and the commentary on puberty is about as sharp as I think as you can get. It's very, very funny.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a try. Here we're recommending things to each other. This is the beauty of this recurring segment.
Yes.
But I guess my last recommendation here is one that I think we're all very aware of.
We're on the same page.
That we're on the same. I mean, everybody else on Film Twitter has already seen this, and the discourse has already happened. So I don't understand. But Mank the
Yes.
David Fincher, Herman J. Mankiewicz semi biography, semi behind the scenes drama of the making of Citizen Kane comes to Netflix worldwide today. So sitting at a 79 on Metacritic here
Yeah.
in the annotated. So I think some of the initial critical reception was rapturous, and then there's the backlash. And so now we're in the sort of backlash phase before all of us have even seen the movie. Or the majority of us. But I'm excited. I'm certainly going to check it out. I'm probably going to force my family to watch Citizen Kane and then Mank with me. So,
Double
are you
feature.
excited, RC?
Yeah, I think I love a lot of the involvement of the people. I have my fingers crossed that it delivers on the potential promise. Obviously, top line, you got David Fincher directing it. It's first film since what? Since Gone Girl? Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's taking a long hiatus here. The script originally was written by his father and then put on the ice for like almost 20 years or so. And he decided to make it now that his father's passed away. And, you know, Gary Oldman headlines the cast as Mank. Lots of other, I guess, sort of more character roles that have been filled out by a pretty good coterie of different, I don't know, Amanda Seyfried, who else is in it? Charles Dance, Tom Burke plays Orson Welles, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's a lot of people.
A lot of people, and they tried to make it. Pat sent an article to JB and myself about sort of the behind the scenes making of it, and it's fascinating. They definitely tried to be true to the era. It'll be interesting to see how that ends up coming across on screen, because sometimes I think you run the risk of that being a little bit hokey. So that'll be fascinating. But I am looking forward to it. I don't know. We'll see. See if it comes in above a 79.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a review segment of that as well.
Yeah.
And can talk about that.
Yeah, that should be an interesting one. But speaking of old movies, let's just sort of we like to throw in a couple old ones. So I have TCM Spotlight for this week. We've spotlighted 2 films, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. So get your DVR prepared or set a reminder. So 3:30 on Saturday on TCM is The Apartment, the 1960 film directed by Billy Wilder. Just so you guys know, currently holds 94 from Metacritic. So basically, the log line is an aspiring executive lets his boss use his apartment for liaisons, only to fall for the big chief's mistress. It is, to me, like the quintessential Billy Wilder film. A lot of people point to Some Like It Hot. But to me, this just sort of captured what he could do with the first real dramedies, I think, are sort of Wilder movies, because you had a lot of screwball, but he really adds a lot of nuance as you go through the 60s and sort of reestablishes sort of a different tone to some of these films. But Jack Lemmon has never been better. Shirley MacLaine is phenomenal. She's so charming, so great.
Yeah.
Now, Pat, have you seen this film? Are you familiar?
Yeah. I've seen The Apartment. I think I've only seen it once, but it is a very like it sticks with you. It's a very effective film. And Fred MacMurray is a real heel.
Oh my God, the Fred MacMurray turn is sort of almost unlike anything he's ever done. I think that's in the actual ad of the movie.
That was the only other. Billy Wilder is the only guy he'll go dark for.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. That's another great Wilder film. But this one, I mean, I guess you start with Sunset Boulevard. He's just really dark in that in general, and then it kind of carries through going forward. But other thing, I'm rewatching Mad Men sort of now too, and there's season 1. This film is released, and one of the girls sort of quotes it as being part of she relates to Shirley MacLaine's character, because she's sort of in the office and all these things are happening. She's having affairs, and she feels like she's going to end up like Shirley MacLaine. But it's great film. Definitely worth the watch. In the AFI Top 100, I think I want to say it's in top 40, but don't hold me to that. So that is number 1. Number 2 is I'm gonna be interested to see if you've ever seen this movie, because I had not ever even heard of it until about 2.5, 3 years ago. I was looking for something a little bit different to watch for Christmas, and I think I was scrolling through, I don't know, it might have even been Filmstruck at the time. R.I.P.
Oh,
Filmstruck, which
R.I.P.
has sort of become the Criterion channel, basically. But 4:15 on Sunday is a movie called The Holiday Affair, directed by Don Hartman from 1949. Logline is a widow is torn between a boring businessman and a romantic ne'er-do-well, set against the backdrop of Christmas. So, headline and cast is Janet Leigh, Bob Mitchum, and Wendell Corey, and an adorable little kid is in it. So Janet Leigh is a single mother who lost her husband in the war, and it's Christmas is coming up. They live in a small apartment. She is dating Wendell Corey, who's sort of this successful guy who's sort of pushing to be her son's father and to become her new husband and support her, but she's resistant. And she meets this mystery man who works at a toy store, who's played by Bob Mitchum, and just about the softest role that Bob Mitchum ever had. It's total, again, to Fred McMurray in The Apartment and Double Indemnity. This is the opposite side of Bob Mitchum. Really softens it up, and he sort of captures the heart of the young boy. And the boy really likes him, and the mother sort of ends up following suit. It's a movie that you see the formula now a lot more, but back then, single mothers dating it's a very interesting premise for a Christmas movie. Heart-meltingly great by the end. If you love It's a Wonderful Life, this is kind of like a different kind of heartstring holiday movie. Definitely would recommend. You could even do it as a double feature with It's a Wonderful Life. It's just got that beautiful 40s schmaltz in it.
Yeah, I've heard of this. I've heard it described as noir, like holiday noir, and I don't know if that's because it's just Mitchum is there, and Mitchum is, the A#1 of noirs, but
he's sort of a drifter, which I think kind of plays up versus the detective role. He's just kind of a guy who is sort of drifting through life, doesn't really value what everybody else values, is kind of over the consumerism and the commercialism after being back from the war, and just is sort of has a different mindset than everybody around him, and thinks differently, and is sort of punished for thinking differently. So the world is kind of beating him down, but he sort of is finding solace in this sort of de facto family that he ends up trying to create with this woman and her son. It's very, very interesting, and little rom-com for the holidays. So definitely worth checking out or putting on the list for later this month. All right, wild card picks. Pat and I are going to the Criterion. Pat, what we got?
We got the Criterion channel giving us the gift of 15 films starring Cary Grant. Cary Grant comedies. A wonderful collection. Doesn't include the Philadelphia Story.
Yeah,
doesn't include My Man or His Girl Friday. My Man Friday. His Girl Friday. But just some gems here. 15 films. Also perfect for you to watch, while if you're able to be home with your family and celebrate with your family, or you're with your quarantine pod and you need something light and cheery to put on. This is literally any of these films will fit the bill. Highlights include The Awful Truth, Bringing Up Baby, which I think you're particularly fond of. Bringing Up Baby, as am I. Arsenic and Old Lace, which a lot of people like. I didn't care for quite as much.
Yeah, I'm not huge fan of that.
And then my favorite underrated Cary Grant gem here, The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer from 1947. Maybe we've talked about this before, but it's got a teenage Shirley Temple and a sort of, I guess, older Myrna Loy as the love interest. And it's just it's a super predictable romantic comedy, but it's just effortlessly charming. I love it. Everybody's firing on all cylinders. So yeah, I think you can't go wrong. They're probably all under 90 minutes, and you're going to be entertained by Cary Grant.
Yeah, there's never been a movie concoction quite like Cary Grant since he stopped acting. Nobody really has filled his shoes.
No,
I don't think it's even personality. Yeah,
no.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I could see a little bit of Clooneyisms, like Clooney-ish, but it's not really even close for what Cary Grant did across 3 or 4 decades, really.
4, yeah. I mean, and how much of George Clooney lives in Cary Grant's house, one of his houses.
Does he really? That's
I think
fascinating.
or at one point he lived in Cary Grant's house. So how much of, I mean, George Clooney, wonderful actor, charming
Absolutely.
man. But how much of that is even just trying to capture
An ounce of what Cary Grant had sort of naturally.
Yeah.
There was a documentary about him a couple years back. I think his daughter was interviewed, and they had various. Yeah, it was interesting. I remember watching it with JB. It was fascinating, sort of hearing his life story and how he sort of changed himself and some of the things that were going on behind the scenes. Always interesting to watch. So I also have a pick of old movies up for a wild card on the Criterion channel, which if you don't subscribe, I do think you get the best bang for your buck, best curation any place on the web is on the Criterion channel. If you want to learn more about film, that is probably the best spot to start. So I have 3 by Terrence Malick. The 3 are Badlands, Days of Heaven, and The New World. Badlands is one of the, I think, sort of the quintessential films of the 1970s. One of the cornerstones of new American cinema. An era when Martin Scorsese and Francis Coppola and Robert Altman were functioning. Terrence Malick came on the scene and came to the forefront with Badlands, where he introduced us to, Martin Sheen and Sissy Spacek in sort of the biggest way. In a road movie where the two of them essentially end up killing Sissy Spacek's character's father, and then they go on the run across the country, eluding authorities. This, of course, only probably 3 or 4 years after Bonnie and Clyde had been released. So a very different, more modern updating. And what I like is I'm a big fan of Malick, and you can see how fully formed his idea of what his version of cinema was, even from the first film that he directed. Sometimes you see a progression for directors and creators, but some people just sort of come out the first time fully formed, like somebody like Orson Welles, who just seemed to be able to harness everything and put it exactly they want. So his follow-up was sort of even more Malickian, so to speak, Days of Heaven, which stars Richard Gere, Sam Shepard as well, which is a story about basically vagrants and migrant workers who end up working on the land in like sort of the Texas, Oklahoma area. And there's biblical undertones that start to get tossed into there. And you can see coming to the front his sort of obsession and fondness for nature. So that's also a very good movie. And then the third film is The New World, which is his take on Pocahontas, which the top line cast is Colin Farrell basically as John Smith. Very interesting, sort of very, I wouldn't say deconstructed, but sort of elliptical narrative to it. Definitely not going to get your 3-act structure there. Beautifully shot movie. First movie I believe he worked on was Shivo, Emmanuel Lubezki, who would go on to win many Academy Awards after that. So definitely worth checking. Yeah, definitely worth checking out. Runtime, some of them are a little bloated. The first 2 films from the 70s, Badlands and Days of Heaven, are relatively short. I think between an hour and a half, 2 hours. A New World ends up being a little over 2.5. So if you're interested in Malick, I would especially recommend those first 2 films. I think that's the best way to get introduced to him. I'm very fond of The Tree of Life, but I think some of his best work was early on. So definitely take the opportunity to check those out.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to, because I haven't seen any of those. I haven't seen any of those movies somehow.
I think you'll really enjoy Badlands. I think that will be one you hook onto.
It's always been on my list. So now's the time. It's back on the Criterion channel.
'Tis the season. And 'tis the movie season. So we'll be back with some more content here in the coming weeks. We got some reviews that we're going to start cranking up. And then we have a new show or a new segment that we're calling Hooray for Hollywood, where we're talking a little bit more about the nitty gritty, acting, creative decisions, things like that. An episode of that will be posted on Sunday. We're going to go do that right after this show. So we hope everybody enjoys this first weekend in December. Hopefully you're getting your Christmas shopping done. And until we talk to you next, we'll see you in the movies. Bye, guys.
See ya.